Well, it is the holiday special edition of the PHNX Coyotes podcast. We are at Coyotes GM Bill Armstrong's temporary home, I guess you could say. Thank you all so much for tuning into the PHNX Coyotes podcast. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a 5-star review. I'm Leah here with Petey, Craig, GM Bill Armstrong, and we've got Bobby and Stanley Armstrong here in and out of the shot. But thanks so much for joining us, Bill, and thanks for having us. Thanks to you and Kyla. This is amazing.
Well, this is it's a great day to have you guys in the house and a little fireside chat with the dogs and get the all the good Yotes news out there, and it's a great day.
This is awesome. Thanks again for having us, and Kyla, thank you so much. But I guess we'll just dive right into it. First of all, where are we? Like, what is happening to your house? Like, this is not your actual house. Can you explain a little bit about what's going on?
Well, we were lucky enough to, as we were getting our house redone, rent a house that had a beautiful fireplace. And I mentioned to Craig one day, I said, we should do a little fireside chat. It's my wife, Kyla, loves the holidays. She loves the festive spirit of Christmas and everything about the holidays. I said, so you guys should come over to the house and we'll do a little quick chat and just about the Yotes, where the Yotes are headed and all the great news surrounding the team.
And as we told Bill, we'll be back for every holiday now. So we'll be back. I'm not sure we're leaving. And this place is so big, I'm not sure they'd even notice if I was here. Like if you just sneak around.
Creep around the other way.
Yeah.
Oh, he's coming. No, it's beautiful. Thanks again for having us.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, it is the holiday season. So I got to ask, what are some of the traditions around the Armstrong household around this time of year?
Well, we try to have all the kids in. That's the biggest thing. You know, our kids are a little bit older, so they're off to university and working in the real world, and so we just try to get everybody back. And along with Kyla's my mom or my mom in town, or whoever we can get in town that's family. It's nice. It's a busy time as a GM. There's not many days off, but in saying that, it's nice to have a little bit of that Christmas pull you into the family dinners and the presents and everything else, and it's a great time of the year as long as you're winning. So it's certainly it's our favorite time probably of the year, just having everybody in and the family around the dinners.
Do you find that it's easier getting people to come from snowy Toronto, Canada to Arizona in the winter?
It is an amazing feat that happens. People get so excited about Christmas in the desert and they want to come see us. So it is very easy. Yeah. The family has adapted very quickly to the nice weather at Christmas time. The dogs have adapted, so it's been a great place. And let's be honest, there's not many places on Christmas Day you can go out for a family hike into the desert and do all the great things, and just even sometimes lie around the pool or just be outside and around the Christmas time. It's a great family time, and it's new traditions for the Armstrongs.
We want to ask you about food because this is a debated topic among our show, holiday food. Yeah. So what are your traditional, I guess, Christmas time foods, and what is your take, I guess, on turkey on Christmas? Yeah,
it's turkey is probably the main thing that we have is most consistent. In our end of it, it's one of those main. I think my wife and all the family loves to get in there and cook. We change it up once in a while. We'll throw some steaks every once in a while and do some different things, or some ribs once in a while. But I'd say turkey shows up the majority of time on Christmas.
Are you the barbecue guy? Like, do you physically, Bill Armstrong, sit at the barbecue grill and make the steaks? I
do.
Okay. Just checking.
I'd say if we did the analytics on that, I'm very average.
That's fair.
I'm very average on the cooking around the house with the family.
So it's okay.
I do it because it seems to be my way that I can contribute. Yes. But for the most part, it's I've got into searing steaks lately and some stuff like that, and doing some But for the most part, I'd probably say I'm an average cook. Yeah.
See, I'm down with that. My problem is you have the same meal at Thanksgiving, then you turn around a month later and it comes back.
This is Craig's platform.
This is my platform. So when you're talking about steaks, now you're talking my language, because that's where we go with Christmas dinner, because we're sick of turkey.
I've often thought, like, with the cleanup and everything, and it's just an idea, it got shut down. Chinese, Thai food, just order it in.
Done.
Done.
That's a Jewish Christmas.
Yeah, I'm with
yeah,
I've done that.
I've thought of that. It's got shot down, but I've just said, hey, listen, there's a lot of work in the cleanup. We could avoid this. So.
Mm-hmm. That's my kind of
Can we reveal who shot it down, or is that
no,
off the record?
we're not. No, that's
okay. We'll talk about that.
I can guess.
Oh my goodness. Oh man.
What memories do you have of the holiday, whether it's as a kid, a teenager, a young parent with young kids, or even recently?
I think as a kid growing up, I knew on Christmas Day that it was cold enough where I grew up, we could always have a rink. So that was my goal, is to get the rink done by Christmas Day.
Nice.
Christmas Day, meant vacation time, and you could be out on the rink with your friends. And I was probably the first one to kind of in the neighborhood kind of manipulate it a little bit in the backyard and get ice in for Christmas Day pretty much every year. So that was my big thing. And it was a time of tournaments. I mean, as a kid growing up, we played all our major tournaments at Christmas time, and that was huge. Or you were watching in the hometown. I grew up in Richmond Hill. They had a huge Pee Wee tournament. So that was a big thing. I think as a parent, just seeing the kids have joy with their presents, I think as a young dad putting together that many presents, I thought there was something wrong with Christmas at that point because of all the assembly that went in. But just seeing your kids, I mean, it's biggest thing as family at Christmas is to have everybody around, and it's just such a great time and your memories of your kids.
But it's funny because your life clearly revolves around hockey, and you talked about playing at the rinks. But now, since the CBA did the brilliant thing and did you the 24, 5, and 6, now you actually get a little bit of a break. Do you spend that time, like you said? Do you sleep? Are you working? Is it family? Is it all of the above?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because as a GM, your brain is attached to 24/7 your job. Like, there's no time off. It's you have to constantly think about it, because there's always something that you're trying to get accomplished, even if it's Christmas Day. So it's weird if you take time off for it and you just think about enjoying the day, the family. It's like, because something the next day is coming your way. And so you've got to be prepared for it. But, you try and compartmentalize your time on Christmas and just say, okay, from these hours, it's going to be full on Christmas. And then, hey, as we move in later on here, I'm going to have to start thinking about the next day, the practices, and who's coming up from the minors, who's going down. It's all those things that constantly revolve. But it is interesting. You never really get a full day as a GM to kind of enjoy. But
as a player, you could disconnect, right? Like you playing at Christmas time, you're away from the rink. It's time to shut it down.
You look forward to that as a player, just for that time to be around your family or your wife or whatever's going on in your life at that time, or who's coming to see you. It's like, hey, listen, there's 2 days. It's shutdown time. Yeah, I agree. I think the hardest part as a player is knowing you're going to have to perform without a lot of practice, and that's the hard part.
Bill, we need to ask you about the sweater you're wearing, because we were, we all were on the same page about wearing, I guess, quote unquote, ugly Christmas sweaters. But for those who can't see from a distance, or if you're listening on audio, so there's some Coyotes wearing Christmas hats and then a cactus with Christmas lights.
It's phenomenal. It's a Christmas
it's
desert
unreal.
sweater.
Yeah,
unreal.
It was ordered off Amazon. My wife, who's pretty due diligent on the Christmas again, picked this out for me. It doesn't fit that well, which I think it's even better. It's even a better ugly Christmas sweater, because it's an odd fitting, but it has everything that I believe in, which is coyotes and cactus. So it's like the perfect ugly Christmas sweater.
Did you get yours, Petey?
Yeah, I got mine on clearance when the new logos changed. It's kind of described to them. Coyote, part of the Coyote family, but I'm also cheap.
That's on brand. Yeah, that's on brand.
And yours, you had nothing to do with.
I had nothing to do with this. I had a sweater
It's literally
that I was wearing yesterday. My family found out I was going to wear an ugly sweater, and they went out and bought one for me that has a cow on it with
a bell,
a cowbell on the bottom. So yeah, this will be the last time I wear this sweater.
Oh my goodness! All right, well, should we transition into talking about hockey now,
sure.
Craig? And I know you want to kick things off, Craig.
Sure. Before we begin, I got to ask you about some news. I was told that the NHL is investigating the medical treatment of a facial injury that Juuso Välimäki sustained in Dallas. What can you tell us about that incident and the investigation?
Well, first of all, it's one of the scariest things I've seen. It was a 95-mile-an-hour slap shot straight to his upper teeth. And it just so happened I kind of knew his wife was at the game, and the first thing as I thought was about her and having to witness that firsthand. And the player that drafted it was Hakanpää, who shot it. He was disheveled too. It just was a straight slap shot to the mouth, moving at 95 miles an hour. And if you know Juuso Välimäki, he's somebody on our team that probably cares the most. The way he trains, the way he operates around the team, and so it's just what could we do for him? At that moment, is he getting what's going to be the next step? And I can remember texting the trainers right away, even though the game was going on. Where is he? How bad is it? They said, hey, it's bad. He's left the ice. He's in an ambulance. We've got our one of our sports science guys moving with him right now, and his wife's getting to the hospital. So I can't comment on typically the investigation of what the Dallas's role in it is on it. That's up to them. But I know from our standpoint, he had to spend the night. He got into the emergency room, and so we had a liaison basically that acted between who stayed with him along with his wife and made sure that we got what was the update and what was going on. And from our standpoint, we tried to do everything we could. We flew his wife home, obviously, after the surgery with him, along with a liaison to take care of him and who was constant contact with our trainers and our doctors back in Arizona. But we don't travel with a dentist, and we don't travel with a doctor. That's provided by the other club. So for us, we had to allocate our trainers to move back and look after the other 22 players going the other way. But we wanted to make sure that we took care of them under the protocol and make sure that we did above and beyond. And we actually had David Ludwig from Hockey Ops also in town, making sure that everything was handled properly.
What is the protocol when you leave?
Well, you want to make sure that he's got somebody, a lot of times their knees or whatever, and the player has to get on a plane the next day. So you tend to make sure that you have someone stay with them so they can help them shower, get dressed, get to the airport, carry the luggage. It's little things that you can't do. That's technically the way it works, is that you want to make sure that you have somebody stay with the player to make sure that they can do that. Most of the injuries aren't that significant, where it's like it requires basically an air ambulance to fly them back to AZ. But you always want to make sure that as a team that you provide help for that player when an injury happens on the road.
Okay.
I just want to ask something about the injury itself, because you were a defenseman and you had to, when you watched that, were you blocking shots? You're tall enough, it probably didn't. If it hits your head, it's going over the glass. But how does Juuso Välimäki stand in front of another shot the rest of his career?
It's a really interesting thing. I mean, they're rockets, and they're coming off the new sticks, extremely fast. And I always say, I wonder how it doesn't happen more. But I think that you just have to know it's kind of a fluke, and it happened, and there's a reason that the goodness of your face, your eyes, and that are protected with the visor if you wear it the right way. That's the most important thing. Everything else can kind of be fixed, and you got to get back on the horse. But it is frightening back there, and I know we had Parayko, and he was over 100 miles an hour slap shot like it. He didn't know where it was going sometimes too, so I think it was kind of frightening for the other team. They used to scatter when he'd shoot it.
So we want to ask you about the kind of the state of the team right now. Obviously, just went on a crazy 5-game winning streak against all the most recent Stanley Cup champions. And then, it's been a little bit of a slide right now, losing 4 games. So right now at this point in December, what's your overall assessment of the team as far as strengths and weaknesses?
Well, it's a great question because, we often ask that ourselves every day, in the organization. And our goal this year is to play meaningful games, and we are. Tonight's game, we are 1 point out of a playoff spot, and it is a big game for us tonight. And we're going through, a period where we haven't been able to win. So there's stress of that. It's exactly where we want to be. If you look at the inside numbers of the power play, and we've become a better power play team. We've taken a step. I think we're over 24%, and our penalty kills over 80%. We've got a good home record. Our road record has improved. So all the right things are happening for us as an organization. Now we're going through a little bit of a losing streak here, but I've never been on or been a part of an organization that hasn't gone through that. And you either make it or break it. This will break you, or you're going to become stronger coming out the backside of this. And you learn something going through this process. And this is a part of the process for us. We all love the 5-game win streak when we're beating up on Stanley Cup champions. And now we're on the backside of that. And now we've got to figure a way out of that. And that comes down to your character, your effort, and your team bonding together, in this particular time. But I'm overall, in the big picture, I'm extremely happy. This is kind of what we said where we're going to be, and this is where we are.
Speaking of overcoming things, center depth is such a critical component to success in the NHL. How do you think the injuries to Jack McBain, Barrett Hayton, Travis Boyd, 3 centers, have impacted this team?
Well, they've impacted us more on the road, to be anything, because we don't get last change on the road. And so when we get on there, we're kind of at the mercy of what the other team is doing. And you can see our face-off percentage dive down, and that doesn't allow us to control the game, whether it's power play, PK, or just important draws that happen during the course of the game. So it has affected us. It's affected some of the lines, with Schmaltzy and Kells. If you think about that line, when Hayden was there last year, they're probably the second best line 5-on-5 in the NHL. And now all of a sudden he's gone, and you're scrambling to replace that. And Hayes has such a great effect where he really just can help that line and complement that line, but because what he does in front of the net. So he's extremely important to that line. But I think even in the minors, we get Kirkland injured. Yeah. So the depth, we were lucky enough to have Kerfoot, who can play center for us and add in. But it has taken its toll, especially on the road games. And if you're going to be really good as a team, you do it through improving your center ice, and it has hurt us with the injuries.
What have you made of the contribution? I think I asked you this recently, but what have you made of the contributions of the 4 truly new players? Yeah. Sean Durzi, you mentioned Kerfoot, Zucker, and Matt Dumba.
Well, it's interesting. It always takes it takes longer than you think for those guys to get comfortable, get used to driving to the rink, the coaches, the teammates, and their line mates. And, you can slowly see it turn. Kerfoot had that span where all of a sudden his game just took off. And you could see the impact that he had, whether it's killing penalties, jumping in on the first line, or accumulating points that we needed in particular games. And now you can see it with Zucker. Zucker's game is starting to take off. I believe he's last 5 games, he's around 4 points. So you can see him start to get comfortable with his team and with his teammates and start to kind of produce. Matt Dumba's been a huge add for us. He's been up and down to some degree, but lately he's played really, really good hockey for us. And he's a strong, steady veteran leader. And if you think about how many times he's helped his team in Minnesota, his former team, get into the playoffs, we need that. We need that leadership from the backside. And I still feel there's more growth in Matt, too, once he gets even more comfortable with the organization.
That's one of the questions I want to follow up on was Matt Dumba.
Yep.
And he's a guy that came in here with pretty lofty expectations on he had a different role in Minnesota. I think he was a shutdown guy with Brodin there. Yep. And I think maybe he did it to himself. Maybe he put on too big of expectations on his own game, because we saw him from the outside, maybe, I don't want to say struggle, that's not the right word.
Yeah.
But maybe he was taking on too much. And like you said, he's settling in now.
Yeah.
Do you think that he has finally reached where you wanted him to be?
Well, Matt's a deep, caring guy. He cares about the team. He cares about the progress of the team. Nobody takes it harder when we lose than him. So I do agree. I think sometimes players can try and do too much. And sometimes you're at your best as a defenseman when less is more all of a sudden, and you're just volume pucking, moving, getting it up the ice, letting the forwards do the work. And we have such a talented forward group. The quicker we can move it to our forwards and let them go to work, when it's on Krauser's stick or Michelli or Keller and Schmaltz, good things are happening for us offensively, and we just have to volume puck, move it out of our zone. And I think that just takes time as your identity as your team. It's a new team. There's a lot of players that have been added into our team, and they've done a great job bonding. But to get to that next level, it takes a little bit more time, and I think those guys are starting to settle in right now.
I wanted to come back to the 4th player, Sean Durzi, who got off to a hot start, seemed to plateau a little bit, at least in terms of production. Obviously, he's been hurt recently. We had heard maybe some criticisms about the defensive side of his game coming in. I just wonder what the total packages look like to you thus far?
Well, I got to work with Larry Robinson, and one of his things was you don't really know a defenseman until they've played over 200 games, So he, his age is up, I think he's 25 now, but he hasn't, there's not a lot of wear and tear and not a lot of NHL games on his body, and he's still trying to figure out his exact role. And the difference between him playing in LA or him playing for the Yotes is about 5 minutes or maybe even 7 minutes of ice time per game. And that's a lot of ice time for a D-man to handle. And they have to learn how to play in those moments. You're playing more ice, you're tired.
Yeah.
And you've got to be a little bit more responsibility and know when you're tired to move that puck and don't turn it over. And that takes a little bit of time on his end. But I've loved his competitiveness. I loved what he's bringing to the team. You watch him practice and how hard he plays the game. He fits right into our culture and what we're trying to get accomplished.
We want to ask you about Logan Cooley. Obviously his first season in the NHL. We've seen some growing pains from him, but I'm curious from your point of view what you've seen from him, where he needs to improve, and then what positives you see in his game.
Well, Logan's done a great job this year. I think there's a lot of comparisons to, hey, is it Fantilli? Is it Carlson? Is it Bedard? How's the race going? Is he in the race? And all these things you see out there. But if you just look at his body of work and what he's been able to accomplish so far, he's close to half a point. I think he's over half a point a game. He's second in assists for rookies in the NHL, and he's had a huge impact for us. And you see games out of him where they're highlight games. You're like, oh my God, look at his ability to push the pace. He's at close to 23 miles an hour off the rush. He's a unique player for us because he can push the pace of our game and make us a faster team. But you also see some of the rookie mistakes that happen, and that's a part of the growth. And that's why we felt it was important for him to come in this year, have some of that growth that's going to happen to him and make that next step and get better. The one thing you love about this kid is if he has a bad game, the next game he's coming back hard. He knows, he's self-aware. He knows he didn't play well. And, if coach has a moment where he says, okay, I want you to improve, he comes back, he does that. He studies film, he works at it. One of the big picture with us, we could let him run wild. And he'd probably have over twice the amount of points that he has now. But if you do that, you're not raising your kids properly. And you got to remember something. 5 years from now, Logan's probably going to be our best player on our team. And it's important that he knows how to play on the D side of the puck. And if we just let him run wild on the offense and then come back to him and say, hey, you know what, we expect you to play defense now, that's not, they're never going to go back and change. So he's learning to play the 200-foot game, learning to play the right way. And that's going to help us out to win championships. And along the same lines, he's such a good skater that he can play defense at one end and get up the ice just as quickly and play offense, and push the pace. So it's a lot. A centerman in the NHL as a young player, it's hard. It's not an easy position.
We've talked a lot on this show about the comparisons between Logan Cooley and Connor Bedard, and something you said there is really interesting. The difference is Connor Bedard's playing first line, first power play. Every time he's jumping over the boards, he knows he's going. He's playing a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
He's putting up points. But Logan Cooley here, second, third line minutes. He's not always the first guy on the power play. He's not, and I think long term maybe that is the benefit. Do you think that the hockey world today, with the social media and the expectations of, hey, he's a top draft pick, he should be good today? Do you think that's part of the problem? Is the way he's looked at?
Yeah, I do think it is a part of the issue that they have, is that there's all these pressure about it. But you have to remember, we're in a different spot than Columbus. We're in a different spot than Anaheim, and we're in a different spot than Chicago. We're a club that's right on the verge of trying to get into that wild card spot and playing meaningful games. So our team is a lot different than their teams, And so for us, and I've had this, if you think about it, he plays close to somewhere between 18 to 20 minutes per game. Those are great minutes. Those are meaningful minutes for him, and it gives him a chance to kind of grow. I get worried as a GM if you're only doing, hey, listen, you're only playing 10 minutes a game. That's hard to develop in there. You never get a rhythm of the game, where what he's doing right now is he's playing meaningful minutes, and he's certainly pushing the pace. And, there's going to be more growth. I have a good feeling that Logan has played well now, but I still feel like he can even get better as the season goes along. And if you look at his history of playing, he does it everywhere he's been, whether it's been the program or Minnesota. He continues, it grows and matches that expectation.
I've had people from the program and from Minnesota say that very thing. So
Yep.
be interesting to watch over the second half of the season. Bill, so much attention is paid to draft picks and free agents when
Yep.
building a roster. But you've proven with players like Connor Ingram, Michael Carcone, Juuso Välimäki, that there are other ways to fill the cracks of a roster. What has been your philosophy in that regard?
Well, when I sat with the staff and we finally got all the staff built, I just said, the amateurs are the stars right now. I said they're going to go out there and make the big picks and get the fancy suits and all the attention on TV. I said, but everybody in this room is going to have huge impact, because if you think about it, a Stanley Cup team is built somewhere 50% through draft, and then the other 50% is built through your pro staff. That's your waiver pickups. That's your trades, or using picks to trade for players. That's all those little things that make a difference. And if you look at a Stanley Cup roster, the normal build of it is over 50% is done by your pro staff. So for us, we have to have our entire hockey ops make a difference, from our analytics to our pro scouts to our amateur scouts to our development. Everybody has to have an impact, and everybody has to have some they got to have a little bit in the fight. They got to be in there. So I love what we've done on the development side. I think those guys have done an amazing job, but everybody's had their little piece so far where they can I guess say that they've helped the Yotes to take that next step.
We'd take off from the ice for a minute and go inside the coach's room for a
Yeah.
minute. You've talked about Andre Tourigny and what he brings. He brings, whether it's a culture or it's an atmosphere of guys like to go to the rink, and that's kind of builds relationships.
Yeah.
It's the third season now that he's been with you.
Yeah.
How do you assess his performance with this team? Because I know we talked last year, it wasn't always on wins and losses.
Yeah.
So where is he at in your eyes right now?
Well, I like what he's done. He's established a culture. I'm going to tell you a couple of things. I went to practice the other day, and the way that the team practiced and how hard they practiced and their buy-in was so important on the ice for us. And you could see the caring of the group. And as we go through this streak, we got on the plane to get home from Pittsburgh, and you could see the group how pissed off they were. You could see the fact that we'd gone on the road and lost a few games, and they were not happy about it. And that's what he's done. He's raised the expectations. The culture has changed. The effort has changed. So I love what he's done with the group. And the reason that we hired him is one of the reasons was because of his effect on young players and how hard he works behind the scenes with video analytics and teaching the young players and their growth during the season. He's had kids that, when you're in junior hockey coach and you have the 15-year-old, you have the 20-year-old, there's a big difference. Do you just work with the 20-year-old, or do you work with both? And he has had the ability to get, in there and work with both. And I like that. He's done a great job with our young players, but he also is continually coaching the older players, and he's had great effect on our team. And I like where we're at. I like where he's at. He has a lot of respect from the guys.
I don't want to overstate this, but as someone that's been around this team, and Petey obviously as well, he seems to develop a relationship with the players, and we talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
Again, it's a cliche, but you really sense it with this guy that there's a closeness with the players that I haven't seen before.
Yeah, and there's energy inside the group that he brings out through his games that he plays, and he keeps it fun. And it's still the NHL. They're still boys. They still got to have fun in that dressing room. They still got to come and want to be in the dressing room and want to be in the fight. And that's what he does great. He gets, if you watch our practice, you can see the guys hooting and hollering and having some fun. At the same time, he's very demanding. That's hard to do as a coach, and I think he does that well.
I have one more question with Andre Tourigny. What's your relationship with him? And I don't mean, can you go out for coffee? I mean, after a game, like especially after a tough game.
Yeah.
Is there a cooling off period between the GM and the coach, or do you go talk then, or do you wait till the next day? What's your working relationship like?
For the most part, after the games, if there's a win, I'll go in and have conversations with him about what has to improve, what has to be done next. Are there any changes for the next day? When we lose, there are times where I go in there, and we talk about certain things. He'd sit and ask me, "Hey, what's your view from up top?" I'd give him my perspective. There are times that are really tough, and I stay out of there. And I know that there's emotional. I've been a coach in there, and I know that I'm emotional. I know that he's emotional, and nothing good can happen in that conversation. And those are the ones that will text each other, hey, I'll talk to you tomorrow. And we pick up the phone and talk, and we walk through it. We've had a good night's sleep. The sun's come up. Everything's going to be okay. And, you can have that conversation. Nothing, for the most part, if you go in there and you're both emotional, anything really good comes of it. So I've coached, and I know that. So probably one of my strengths is to kind of stay out of that area when I know that it's a tough loss and he's emotional. Our thought process is way better in the morning.
At the start of the season, you said you didn't think this team was quite ready for the playoffs. Today, they're 1 point out of a playoff spot.
Yeah.
Have they changed your mind, or do you stand by that?
Well, I guess I'm going to give you a little wishy-washy on this one. Confidence comes from a source, right? So if we're playing well and we're responding and we're in the fight, then I feel like we're a playoff team. If we're not doing that, then I feel like we're not going that way. Then those are my thoughts. It comes from a source, my belief. So it's a day-to-day process that we go through. And seeing what the team is capable of. Do we, when we're down by 2 or 3 goals, one night, are we pushing to come back, or are we rolling over? You're always watching as a GM. What are we doing in the big games? When it's we're protecting a 1-goal lead. Can we close that out? Can we come back 1-0 down? So there's all these little things that I use as sources, to answer that question. I'm not ready yet to answer that question. How's that?
We'll follow up later.
But you're also in the middle of December. You're 1 point out, you look at the last 2 Decembers.
Yeah,
we sure as heck weren't talking about playoffs the last 2 Decembers. So even if it's meaningful games that these guys are scoreboard watching and standings watching, even if they fall short, and we're not saying they are, but even it's still okay as you're still progressing towards that ultimate goal.
Yes, because we've gotten better as an organization with the picks and all the players that we've added, along with our numbers and improving our team that's on the ice right now. So yes, in the big picture, we're moving in the right direction, and that's what you're really, really excited about, because you want to get to a point as an organization that you're making the playoffs every year. Whether you win it every year or not, I can't answer that. It's a pretty tricky team. There's 31 other clubs trying to win it too. But you want to be an organization that's pushing the envelope, and you're getting in every single year because of the talent that's in your organization.
And that's what you had in St. Louis. Like the expectation in St. Louis, we're making the playoffs.
Get past the second round.
It's not winning the cup. It's we're making it, and then we'll see where it goes. And I think that this team is exactly what this franchise needs, the fan base needs. It just needs to know, hey, to win a championship in any sport's difficult. Hockey is beyond difficult to win a Stanley Cup. But you have to be part of the group that's winning and making an effort to get there. And I think we've all said it for the last 3 years. You see the baby steps, and now it's starting to go, gosh, we're talking playoffs. And it's exciting for us to sit and talk playoffs now. So the future's bright.
Yeah.
All right. If this is a question you'll be asked about 40 more times before we get there, before we get to the trade deadline. But if this team is hovering around a playoff spot near the trade deadline, what's the plan? Are you interested in big ticket rentals, maybe depth rentals, Sean Durzi type acquisitions through trades, or big trade acquisitions? I don't know what your thought process is.
Well, I think we're open to all the above. I don't know if a rental would help us at the end of the day. We've acquired assets, and if you look at I think we have 10 second rounders over the next 3 years. We've got 7 third rounders over the next 3 years. But that doesn't mean we want to give those away. It's got to make sense for long term. So if we're going to put a package of picks together, which we've done for the Durzis and the McBains of the world, then it makes sense because they're with us and they're going to help us grow. And I would look for opportunities to do that more so than just giving away something for something. It doesn't mean, hey, all of a sudden we get banged up down the stretch and we got to give a third for a depth centerman or something like that.
Right.
That could happen to us. But at the same time, we look for the big picture on, can we add somebody to our organization that's going to help us, 2-3 years down the road. And that pays more dividends in my mind than anything. And we've got assets to do so.
Yeah, and you kind of answered my next question, because 13 picks in the first 2 rounds of the next 3 drafts, which is an insane amount. You say you're willing to do that. How do you decide where that line sits, where okay, it's time to make a move like this versus, it's too soon, let's not rush this process?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we do is anything that comes available, anybody's talking about it on Twitter, anybody's talking about a trade that could possibly come, we look at everything. That's my job every morning, to wake up and put it on the board and discuss it, and we beat it up inside the hockey ops, through our scouts, the pro, the amateur, the coaches. We put everything on the board to make sure that, hey, could this help us, and could this help us long term? Because you just don't want to go past something. Everything's in play, and that's the same way we were able to get the Välimäkis of the world or the Ingrams in the world. We're discussing absolutely everything and every option to bring in players.
I'm glad you brought that up, because you mentioned Twitter, and there's rumors that float on Twitter from time to time, as you know.
Yeah.
What percentage of the discussions are like that you're actually having, or the things that you're considering, do you think actually see the light of day in public?
Oh, it's a good question. I've never really thought about it that way. I think there's some people that put stuff out on Twitter that it's not even like you're laughing behind the scenes. But then there are times where you're like, hey, is there a mic in the room? Hey, is there something going on? But yeah, I mean, you Twitter's, I mean, listen, you use it for what it is. It definitely has, it keeps you, hey, so-and-so got injured on this team, and you're like, okay, now their next move is, and if you're good on the pro side, and you're director of pro and your head analytics, they're always going through the cap. Hey, this happened. What's the next thing? They're putting this guy in LTIR. So you're anticipating what all those teams are doing, and how could you help them?
Yeah. Or
how can they help you, in the process?
And that's, to me, I think it's important, and I'm going to kind of reiterate it, is you see a lot of big names getting kicked around right now.
Yeah.
And pretty likely that this team isn't going to go for a 35, 36-year-old big name player that doesn't fit into your long-term plans. I think it's really important. I personally, I'm going to use his name. When Patrick Kane went to the Rangers last year, I said, how are they putting him into that mix in that room at this time? So I don't think the Coyotes, I don't think we're hearing from you that that's what you're looking for. But if there's someone that can help you, not just the rest of this year, but next year, the year after, or down the road, you're definitely open to that.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's some players out there that will generally be moved out. Some teams are now, coming clear that they might have to rebuild, and hey, listen, we've got to move this player out and we can acquire this. We've got to explore that. Every single time that comes up, we've got to go through that process and see what we can give, and how can that person or that player make us better inside our locker room. And obviously, long-term has a factor for us. We're playing long ball here with our team.
And that's Jersey. That's exactly what we did with Jersey.
Yeah, and he's the same. And we've, listen, if we just look short-term with this team, we could spend all our assets, but I don't know if it would make us any better long-term. So I think there has to be a plan, and there has to be a lot of discussion on acquiring somebody to make us better long-term.
There's a trade freeze during the holidays, which I like that the NHL does that. Starts midnight on Wednesday. Do you expect to be quiet before that freeze?
Well, it depends on what goes on. Wins, losses, those occur, injuries occur, and you have to make deals. But you're definitely respectful of the player. I've had to make one of those calls right around Christmas time, and it's the worst. It is the worst, and you feel for the player. And listen, fans say, well, he makes millions of dollars and so, but it is tough on the players, and you have to respect that fact. I try to reach out to the players later on after the trades and just talk to them a little bit about it at times, and they're upset, but I think they have a better understanding of why it happened, usually after with some thought process behind it.
You sit here with a point out of the playoffs right now.
Yep.
And you talked about all these assets. Do you, as a general manager, ever get up in the morning and go, gosh, we're really close? And do you ever think of selling in the future? Do you ever go, like, what holds you back from going, gosh, if I got this guy and this guy, we might be able to make a run this year? Like, to temper that excitement that we're doing good with, we need to be good next year.
Well, I listen, I think that every morning. I mean, I get up trying to improve the club. That's the way you have to think. How can we improve our club every single day? Is it calling somebody up from the minors? Is it acquiring somebody that you think has a chance from the minors? You have to go through that process, and that's a healthy process to have. At the end of the day, you also have to have your staff weigh in and keep it going in the right way. I think we've made a lot of good decisions, whether it's been our signings, the Krause contract or Michelli's contract or Ingram's contract, along with some of the other people that we've picked up along the way, and Dursey for a second, McBain for a second, and we've got to continue to build smartly and think long term. what we've been able to accomplish so far has been great because it's given fans hope. They come to the game. There's not a fan that hasn't watched us this year that hasn't thought, oh my God, I can see it coming, and as long as you're showing hope to your fans, and we've tried to be, thank God for this show, as transparent with our movement and what we're trying to accomplish with this team to our fan base and get it out there. And because of that, I do believe, when the other day I got lost and I had to go through the front of Buffalo's arena, and I ran into all these Yotes fans, and they were like, they knew the plan. They're like, keep going, so it was kind of like, I think the transparency that we've had as an organization with our fan base has been great, and I think they trust it. They can see it coming.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of Yotes fans, this next section of questions comes directly from them. We reached out to our diehards, and by the way, this was a unique opportunity for our diehards in our members-only Discord. So if you want to become a diehard, I highly recommend doing so. You can sign up and get access to our Discord, a free shirt or hat when you sign up, 20% off merch and events, as well as a ton of extra exclusive content and more to come in 2024 as well. So thank you to all of our diehards who asked questions. I had to be selective and only pick a few. We have some hockey ones, we have some fun ones, so it'll be a good mix. But we can go ahead and get started with the first question. This one comes from Mike Gold, who said, Bill, what are your thoughts on Victor Soderstrom's progression this season, and do you think he's capable of being even a small part of the Coyotes' future?
That's a great question. Victor's done a great job. He came into training camp, and obviously there was some competition. Now we've added Kesselring, and you bring back Stetcher, and Dumba comes in, and Dermott's there. And I'm sure, as a player, it's hard for him because he didn't want to go back down to the minors. What I liked about what he did was he went back down to the minors, and he's played better and better and better. And now he's making us, having to make a tough decision because he's playing so well down there that he's pushing for a spot. So I think at some point, and how the injuries work during the course of the year, there's going to be opportunity for Victor at some point in time, and he's done a great job at rounding out his game and becoming more effective.
Want me to ask this next one?
We'll go for the next one.
Question 2 from Cooper Krigbaum. What's the best response or answer from a draft interview question you or someone else asked? You remember a good one? Put you on the spot there.
I can tell you a funny story. It was about Kutlak. That's in Calgary. I don't know if this is one. So during the process, you're interviewing anywhere from 50 to 90 kids. Wow. In St. Louis, we did a lot of kids, and so you kind of get giddy in there, and you kind of get like, just kind of out of it because they're just rolling through. And so there's a little bit of a break, and and he walked in, and he started speaking English, and I was like, oh my God, you speak English so well, like Czech name, Kutlak, like that's unbelievable, And he looked at me and he said, well, I hope I do. I'm from Saskatoon.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and yeah, there's some funny moments in there where I was interviewing the one kid. I was all over him, like, who loves you the most? Who loves? Like, tell me. And he goes, well, my mom loves me the most. But you just have those funny little moments,
Oh,
and I always equate when you're interviewing them, when you get them to the right temperature. And I always say, if you go in there so hard with them, they put their back up and they're answering the questions, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
But it's almost like when you go across the border and the border guard will say to you, you're going from Canada into the U.S., like, oh my God, you work for the Arizona. You're like, GM, that's incredible. And he gets it. And then he looks you in the face. He goes, you got any drugs and alcohol or guns in the car? and what he gets from you is your true response, because he gets you at a cognitive ease where you start having conversations. So I've always felt like if you get them in the room and you can make them laugh a little bit, get them to tell you a joke. Hey, what's your thing? Get them to the point where, and sometimes, you'd say to them, hey, we know the truth. And if there's a controversial guy, we know the truth. And this just tell us the story. And you're like this when he's telling the story, you're like, oh, I didn't know that. So there's a lot of funny moments. But most of the kids are pretty well rehearsed now. Their agents spend a pretty good time rehearsing those answers. And your job there is to get them to relax, break the interview sometimes. Sometimes the easiest way to do that is just say, hey, you get to ask us a question. Well, they're perplexed. They're like,
that wasn't ready for that.
That wasn't part of the script.
Yeah, but did your approach, and I'm sorry to get off the script because that's what I do
Yeah.
here. In those meetings, like I've seen teams or heard of teams that it's a sports psychologist. They've got a written test that if he answers B to this one and D to that one, he's probably. Or are you just there trying to find out what's inside the
our work's already done behind the scenes. There's some questions that the local scout has about, hey, what about this game? Did you play well? But nowadays, you have to be extremely respectful to the player. There is Twitter, and they can come out right. If you get back in the day, they would try and break them. Listen, there's 20 minutes. Yeah. It's the old like Lance Armstrong interview where you ask him one question and he runs out 20 minutes on you. You never get a chance to ask the second one. The kids are very well rehearsed that if they have a slight issue coming into the combine, they're very well rehearsed. You're never going to break them on it. Like if they answer honestly and they explain it, you're good. You're very happy inside. If they don't, and even if they lie to you, you're just saying in your back of mind, keep lying. I know you're lying. I know the answer. You're never going to confront them. And I think there's a balance to the way that you do that. And you always want to make sure when they leave the room that they know, we interviewed them for a purpose. We like them. That's why we're in that room.
All right. Next question from our diehards. This one comes from Major Nelson, who said, "You're on the record as being someone who builds hockey teams and not arenas. However, I'm wondering if there's a feature aspect or food option or any other aspect that you particularly like in any one of the other 31 NHL arenas that you would like to see implemented in the Coyotes' new building."
Great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think so we study the buildings. I do say that I don't build arenas. I build hockey teams, but I look at a lot of arenas and I take a lot of good ideas, and I would like to build the arena. And if you look at like for the players, the wives' room can be special. With the kids coming out, the way that they park. I love the way when you go to a Suns game, you roll out if you're in the bottom section there. You roll in right into your car and you're on the highway in about 2 minutes. It's incredible. And they've got valet parking. I think they do an unbelievable job in that arena of having the parking. It's the best parking I've seen. So there's little things. You go into Seattle, they have these bunkers where nowadays you can be at your seat and there's a seating that goes right down into a bunker below you, and you have all your food and you can hang out there in periods. And you can watch the players exit from the benches. So there's a lot of new ways to view games and the scoreboards that they have and how they can make it. And Dallas has the cheerleaders and the way they have it set up and just getting the fans involved with the lighting show and everything. There's just so many special things. I think for us, I would like to see us, when we're building our arena here in AZ, I would like to see them build it special with the greatest part of every arena and bring it into our arena, make it the loudest, most rocking. Listen, we're in the win. Being a good organization, you're going to be in the winning game. You've got to win, but you also have to entertain. And I've been in some buildings lately where the organ music, it's okay, but you can't play it for 60 minutes. Yeah. It doesn't. Our fans are different than 60 years ago. They've all got phones in their hand. They want to be entertained, and it's access. Get them involved in the game. We are in the entertainment business. Wins come first, but we've got to entertain our fans. And when they go there, we need them singing Yotes songs, be up, with the white towels, getting everybody involved. It's got to make everybody walking out of there feeling like they're part of the Yotes, and it's the most exciting thing they've ever seen in their life.
Great answer.
I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah, seriously. All right, next diehard question. This one comes from Mike Lang, who asks, "Have you ever had any dangerous encounters with Arizona wildlife, such as coyotes, rattlesnakes, black widows, mountain lions, bobcats, or Craig Morgan?" He did throw that in. So
that's a good question. We've had a couple snakes go across in the snake season, and I wasn't here. But my son, who at the time played for BU, had all his buddies in there, and they might have partake that day in going to what's that town around Tempe that all the young kids go out. They might have gone there and gone hard because I think it was their spring break. I don't. He's around the corner, actually. He's in town. I don't want to ask him about it. But they were all passed out on the patio, and some of them couldn't find their beds, and there was this massive snake on the camera going across the patio, and they weren't moving. You know what I mean? And I've never seen a snake in Arizona, I have to be honest, but apparently it had come out there, and there was pictures of it. So there's a couple bobcats. The coyotes are in the neighborhood. You can hear them when they get somebody's poodle. They celebrate like nobody's business, and somebody's dog went missing in Paradise Valley. When Stan and Bobby, our two Frenchies, go out to go to the bathroom, you go with them just to make sure they got a little protection. It's kind of like having Obi on the line. You got a little protection.
Oh my gosh! All right, next question.
Question number 5 from Luke Anthony. What are your thoughts on the seasons of Dmitry Simashev and Daniil? Is it Daniel or Daniil Boot?
Daniil Boot.
Daniil. Okay.
Boot, yeah.
Are they playing as well as you hoped? Obviously, the situation comes into play as well where they are.
Yeah, it's a tough league. You're in the KHL. They're in Locomotive. It's a fabulous franchise with a fabulous culture, with a hard-nosed Russian coach that's not letting those rookies away with one thing. And so their ice time is dictated by their play, and is the club winning at the time. And Daniel and Simashev have done a great job at really being a part of that team and helping that team win. And some of their big moments this year, these kids have had unbelievable games. I'm so proud of both of them, especially Danielle. He's put up half a point a game, and with limited ice time. It's incredible the amount of points this guy has put up. What fans in Arizona are going to like about him, what they're going to notice about him is he's 6'9", and he can skate, and he's skilled, and he can score and make plays. But what you're going to love about him is his work ethic is incredible. He strips pucks with his long stick. He goes to the tough areas. He plays a man's game out there. And you're going to love his skill. And he's on the puck 24/7, and he continues to get better. And he's going to be a little bit like Tage Thompson, where it's a longer runway when you draft people that are taller. It's going to take him a little bit longer to figure it out, and especially at the speed. But he's playing it with the second highest level in the world, and he's got half a point a game on limited ice time. It's incredible what he's done. Our fans are going to love to see him. And Simashev is, and I will stick by this and saying this, and I'll say this right on camera, out of all the big men, I've been a part of drafting, I've never drafted a player that can skate like this at this size, that can close like that. His offense hasn't come out in the KHL, but he's playing upwards of 18 minutes a game and all the big things. And if you watch him play, you can see the footwork and the size and what he can do defensively. And he showed small flashes of his offense. He doesn't get to play that game at that level, but I love where he's going. And we're so excited about drafting these two particular players. And, when they come in, it's going to be exciting.
Is it hard because it's Christmas time now?
Yeah.
Do you look at those two players kind of like the Christmas present that you really want to unwrap and play with right now, but you have to wait till Christmas Day?
Yeah, we've had the ability to draft so many first-rounders that we have the ability to wait and be patient and bring those guys over in a couple of years. And that's going to be a huge thing for us because they're going to be coming out of a league where they can move right from that league right into the NHL and have direct impact for our organization. So that's going to be a huge part of us moving forward. But they're a little bit like dessert, you still got it coming,
There you go. All right, this next question comes from YoteFan790, who asks, when you start attending the game as a scout, what are some things you now notice during a game or even a given play that maybe you never did as a, quote, average fan or even as a player? And this is something for me I'm interested in too, as someone who didn't coach, wasn't ever a scout. Like, what are you looking at?
Well, the first thing that jumps out at me is physical ability. It's the first thing. It's the skating. It's the size. It's the skill level, how fast they operate. Second thing that jumps out is the hockey sense. Can he play around people? Can he make people better on the ice? Does he have that elite hockey sense where he has deception in the game? And I watched that today. Like, my brain's been forever changed. I can't just watch a game and be a fan. So my brain's tuned in. And now when I was a coach, I used to watch systems. Now I watch instinct in players and their physical ability. And, there are times every scout has their strength. Every scout has their weakness of what players they like. And you think about being a scout. I come from a playing background, assistant coach, and then a teacher of the game through hockey school. And then I get on the ice. I have certain guys that I go to a game and I can pick out. In other games, there are times it takes a little bit longer, or it takes a scout to write, hey, this guy's 5'9". I know you don't like him. You got to need to go back, or he's a big guy that you don't think can move a puck, but he really can. You just caught him on a bad thing. So I think the greatest thing about being a scout is that you get the ability to go back and look at him again through other people's eyes or different analytics. But what fans watch is a different game because you're watching the complete flow and the excitement and back and forth. Where when you're really scouting, you're watching sometimes one or two players and that's it.
All right, 3 more questions for you. And this one comes from, this is question number 7, Jacob. And from a follower that's been with us for a long time. It always cracks me up when I say this. I'm a Raven caw-caw. How do you navigate the personal relationship with your players? There's this reality as a GM where you might have to trade them or cut them or re-sign them or let them go at some point. How do you navigate all that and still try to develop a relationship?
Well, I think it's tough, to be honest with you. You know, your wife is friends with, you know, their wives. We try to make them comfortable when we come to town. We try to have relationships where we take people out for dinner and get to know them and figure out, is there anything we can do? How can we make it more comfortable for them as they're here? Can we get their kids in any programs or introduce them to any friends? And so you're vested in the player. I think the other thing about it is that we are probably one of the most friendly organizations in the NHL. When you get on that plane, it's like, you know, happy dog day, you know, your birthday, your wife's birthday, your parents are in town. Hey, you know, like, we're, between coach and myself, you know, no matter what the day is, we're pretty friendly. And that's important, I think, as an organization, because I think it's the new wave organization where, you know, you're having constant communication with your players and you're involved with them. I think it's the new age. I don't think it's where you give them the stone-faced look 24/7 and they just thought, that's just our GM, he wants us to be better. I just don't think that is the new wave. So but it is, you know, and what players give, you know, the more they give, the harder it is to get rid of them, even if it's a Troy Stetcher from last year, or, you know, you see what you know, how they play and what they give for your organization. It's truly tough. It really is, because you do get attached. But I mean, you know, your head's always got to rule your heart, and that's a big thing as a GM.
Or Minnesota native Nick Bukestad. Just throwing it out there.
Had to bring it up once a show.
That's hard. I'm sure it was hard.
Oh my gosh. Well, we do want to bring Kyla on the show because do you want to be on the show, Kyla? She's so graciously hosted us.
Long for
basically, we just want to get rid of PD and
not the first time that's happened to me.
So Kyla, you can come sit over here.
My wife says she's a truth sayer. So
here she comes. All right.
We can ask them both this next question.
Yes,
actually,
yeah. So we still have a couple questions. We want to get your opinion, but Kyla, first of all, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for having us in your beautiful home.
Thank you.
And for the hot cocoa.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And for not talking about Love Island, which you know, I know she gave me the look. Okay.
Am I allowed to tell the truth?
You can tell. You already set you up.
Bill is shaking.
Not yet.
Am I allowed? Okay.
No.
I think by that comment, we really know what the truth is.
This household is a big fan of Love Island. I'll just say that. It's not just me, everyone. It's not just me. Okay, well, we'll ask the last 2 questions, and then we'll ask you a couple of your own. So, Jacob, if we can get to the next question from our diehards, and this is a little bit more holiday themed. So this one comes from AZ2CO. What's your favorite Christmas or holiday movie?
Oh, that's easy for her.
This one's an easy one, but apparently it's newly controversial.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I love Love Actually. It's
Okay.
my favorite. It's
That's a good
tradition.
one.
Every year we watch it,
watch
but
it.
apparently it's getting a little bit of a bad rap lately. but
Oh,
it's my favorite movie.
okay.
Yeah, it's not even close.
Yeah, for you too.
I've grown to love it after watching it 750 times. I've grown for a new appreciation of it, and I do have to say I like it too. Yeah.
There you go. Love Island, Love Actually.
Wait, Leah, what's yours, by the way?
Mine's Christmas Vacation.
Okay.
Oh, that's a classic.
Cray.
All right. Mine's Elf.
Oh,
Will
really?
Ferrell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a classic.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go.
You're like, yeah, that's a classic. Right? Sure. Nice choice, buddy.
Oh my
You
gosh.
tell a lot about a person.
Yeah,
movie
it's
choices.
true. It's true. Okay, well, this is our last diehard question. This one comes from Nicholas, who asks, eggnog or fruitcake? Must pick one to have at Christmas every year, and no, this eggnog will not be spiked because I want to make this a harder decision. So pick one, eggnog or fruitcake, I guess.
Well, for me, very easy. Eggnog.
Okay.
Eggnog.
I don't think I've ever had eggnog.
I have.
Which is, yeah.
Spike, though, right?
What?
shouldn't
Fruitcake?
be. It
PD's
shouldn't
just chiming in like with his mouth full from the back.
Fruitcake's
He's eating
good, but
cookies.
it's a really old school
Yeah, it
Christmas.
is.
I mean, if you go to our family way back in the 70s, it was everywhere.
Yeah. It's kind of like having organ music at NHL games, right? And probably
Might be in
outdated
that
now.
same category.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I think you
Oh
should
my
bring back
gosh.
organ music before fruitcake, though.
Yeah.
I'm with
True.
you on that
That's
one.
True. Oh my gosh. Well, that's all our diehard questions.
Yeah.
Greg, did you have any questions for Kyla since she's
You don't want to share, huh?
Yeah.
You don't
Is
wanna
there
share.
anything?
I don't know
Okay,
if I'm allowed to share.
We got to ask about the dogs because the dogs have been
Okay.
unbelievable
Oh my
on the
gosh,
show.
so
and,
cute.
And of course, we had Stanley Baxter on a show long ago when
Mhm.
we were back in our first studio
Yeah.
a long time ago. But you've added a second dog since. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about Bobby.
We hinted that we were going to add another dog.
You did.
Yeah.
You did.
You go for it, babe.
Well, we're big fans of the Frenchies. You know, we love they're pretty quirky. Stan's really hypersensitive to anybody leaving the house without him. He thinks he's a part of the family. The more you give, the worse he gets. He loves to be with the family. He's such a fan. Anywhere you go, Stan's there. He's a great dog. I mean, just, you know, as a GM, you come home at night and sometimes, you know, they're tough days and, you know, the dogs don't really care about the wins or losses. So
Amen.
I think they're good for the mental health of the whole family. And it's just, they're great. And young Bobby is just, how would you describe Bobby? She's probably like,
She's just full of love. She's just full love.
yeah.
I can't believe how well behaved they've been.
Yeah, they've been unbelievable.
Also, like he fell asleep at one point, and I heard his little snores.
Oh, I was worried about the snoring.
So cute.
How did you get Bobby?
So
a
Stanley
weak
was my
moment.
daughter, but Bobby was me. There's a great breeder in here, and a friend had one, and so she said they have another litter. So
They're close, though. I've been watching the two of them.
They're so
They're
cute.
buds.
they're amazing. They love hanging out together. He's still super anxious, but she's just full love, like just love.
Kyla, I'm going to jump in because I can't stay away for that long. Like I'm just
Why don't you
the
join us?
attention. It's
He
the
does like
attention
the
I
camera.
need.
He does
So
like the camera.
we've talked to Bill on air several times,
Uh-oh.
and in his role as a general manager, he just said it today. Like that role literally never stops. If he's awake, his mind's thinking hockey. So how do you balance that? Because you're here, you have time alone. He's traveling, he's thinking. How are you able to balance that? The relationship with him as a hockey general manager and also being your husband.
Well, it's not very traditional, this relationship, and I think this industry is not. We started off with him scouting. So for me, it's easy because he's always been on the road. He's actually home possibly a little bit more now as a GM. The difference is that this job is just full on. I mean, I thought he worked hard when he was scouting, but it's 24/7.
Yeah.
You know, every once in a while I try to just pop in to have a little bit of a reality check, and I'm like, hi, let's be human. And every once in a while I see the fun personality pop back in. But you know what? I respect the fact that he works so hard. He eats, sleeps, and breathes this, and it's his passion. So I have to love it.
Do you ever get to a point where you're able to even put the phone down? Like, just I'm going to leave it over there for an hour while we do something. It's hard. It's the reality of the job,
Who
right?
wants to answer
Yeah,
this?
I think when you're in a GM or you're at head of, you're a CEO or whatever, you have to be really good at compartmentalizing things, and that's part of that is time too. Sometimes I've been in situations where you have something that's not good in one room, and you got to walk in. Next thing you know, you're doing a press conference, you're signing a kid, and it's the greatest day of his life, and you've got to be present, and that's the hardest thing. And same thing when you get home, you have days where, you know, you might just have the worst loss of the season, and you've got to walk in with the family and have dinner, and you've got to be able to change. So that's probably the hardest thing. I think is just compartmentalizing the different rooms that you're in, and it happens quick, and it's not your kid's fault that you lost that day, you know. So it's definitely it's definitely an interesting job. It's probably the best job I've ever had. I love it, so I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Guys, we cannot thank you enough for opening up your house to us. By the way, like, so much of what you see in front of you, Kyla did before the show ever went live today. We got hot cocoa. It's like a gallon of hot cocoa. I think I drank it all, by the way, because
Candy
it's
canes,
really good.
cookies.
Petey's been eating all the cookies and not sharing.
Yeah, this has been unbelievable.
It really has. So thank you so much.
Well, hopefully we start a tradition, and this could be a wonderful thing. And thank you for coming into our house. It's been great.
Yeah, this has seriously been phenomenal. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for watching, for commenting. Be sure to hit the like button on this video before we leave. And if you're listening on audio, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe as well. You can follow our show at PHNX_Coyotes, and we'll be live tonight for a post-game show after the Coyotes take on the San Jose Sharks right here on the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. So don't miss it. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your Friday, and we will see you all tonight.